We're live now. Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So we are in week 5 of the Vaisnava Etiquette course. If you're looking at the manual, it'll be on page 49, which may not have a page number. Here's that some here. Yes. So this today are the class is on part 4 in the manual, dealings with different categories of devotees. So there are 3 categories of devotees. Srila Rupa Goswami says in the Nectar of Instruction that one should mentally honor the devotee who chants the holy name of Lord Krishna. One second here. Srila Rupa Goswami says in the Nectar of Instruction that one should mentally honor the devotee who chants the holy name of Lord Krishna. One should offer obeisances, humble obeisances, to the devotee who has undergone spiritual initiation. And associate and faithfully serve a pure devotee who is advanced in undeviated devotional service and whose heart is completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others. So these are 3 classes of devotees. Anyone who takes up the path of Krishna consciousness is in one of those categories. And Nectar of Instruction actually gives details of how each of those categories of the devotees are defined. But for right now, we won't go into that too much at the moment, so we can go through all the material here. But we'll continue on. So dealings with the spiritual master. One should humble oneself submissively and render service to the spiritual master. 2, one should take the orders of the guru as one's life and soul. On that instruction, Srila Prabhupada always told how he always, of course, took the very humble position. Actually, he perfectly exemplified these first 2 points. He always took the very humble position. Srila Prabhupada was, he'd spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. He had written so many wonderful Krishna conscious books, and he just did things that were like superhuman. But he always took the position that, well, I'm just a humble servant of my spiritual master, and I'm just trying to do a little service like this. So he made a point that as a second second dealings with the spiritual master point is here, one should take the orders of the guru as one's life and soul. So Srila Prabhupada obviously did that. Even at the very first meeting of Srila Prabhupada, between Srila Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta looked at him. Srila Prabhupada, who was known as Abhay Charan then, at that time he was known as Abhay, or Abhay Charan, he hardly even had a chance to sit up after bowing down and offering his obeisances to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta already was saying to him and his friend who brought him in there. You're intelligent young men. Why don't you preach Krishna consciousness to the Western countries and to the English-speaking people? So Srila Prabhupada was very impressed by that. Because Srila Prabhupada had a lot of experience in his youth. His father inviting so many so-called sadhus, for the most part it was so-called sadhus, to the home, giving prasadam, giving some charity, but most of them were not. They were not sadhus at all. They're just they call it show bottles. So he was not very impressed with them, but when he saw Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he was very impressed. So from that point, he was already thinking, how can I do this? He was actually feeling sorry that he'd gotten married and he had some children already. Said if he had not gotten married at that point, then he could have just joined the ashram there with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. So he was already thinking from that point on throughout his life how to carry out that instruction of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Number 3, in the presence of the Guru, one should not instruct others without receiving his permission. That should be obvious. If your Guru is there and somebody to preach to, especially, and you don't butt in and prevent the spiritual master from speaking. In the presence of the Guru, one should not take one's own disciples. Another point that Srila Prabhupada made is etiquette. Even if someone happens to be qualified to accept disciples, even if they're advanced like that, the etiquette is, while your spiritual master is still physically present, still living, as a rule, you don't accept your own disciples. You bring everyone to the spiritual master. Although I see in ISKCON now it's changing. There's a lot of some gurus are allowing or encouraging some of their senior disciples to accept disciples like that. So I guess with the permission of the Guru, it can be done. There was one devotee named Siddha Sarup something, disciple of Srila Prabhupada, who on his own started accepting disciples. And some of the Srila Prabhupada's other disciples, my godbrothers, were complaining about that. They didn't like that he was doing that because it wasn't exactly the etiquette. The Srila Prabhupada didn't really make a big thing of it. Apparently, it was the devotee who was doing it was qualified. It was an etiquette, but it should not have been done. But it was not like a horrible offense. He was preaching and he was helping those disciples become Krishna conscious. But as a general rule, we should not accept our own disciples if the spiritual master is present, unless possibly the spiritual master asks you to do it, or at least we give permission for you to do it. 5, one should simply obey the instructions of the Guru and should not question. We should not disobey the instruction thinking that we know the real inner meaning or his real inner feelings. And I'll give a very good example of when that was not followed. Just before I joined the movement. I joined the movement in 1971, met devotees in January 1971. And already then I had heard about someone, because the devotee who I first met was one who had done this. There was there was some misunderstanding among some of the at that time senior devotees in ISKCON. Senior devotees means you're in the movement for 4 years. This is early on. So they somehow or other they missed the point, and they were going around preaching that Srila Prabhupada was God, right? They preached that he was God. Now the spiritual master is to be respected as good as God, respected like that, but he's not God. He's a servant of God. But they were going to the temples and preaching to the devotees that Srila Prabhupada was actually directly God. He's actually Krishna, and that he said, saying that he would be that he would come to this temple more, but you're not understanding his real position. You're thinking that he's just servant of God, and he's actually God. Anyway, it was a big misunderstanding. And when Srila Prabhupada found out about it, for some time, this few sannyasis were not even allowed to go to ISKCON temples. They were not allowed to preach, they were not allowed to do anything for some period of time until they understood their mistake. And Srila Prabhupada was very, very heavily preached to the the other senior devotees, GBCs and so on, in ISKCON at the time, that he says, you know what this is? Do you know what has happened here? This is Mayavad philosophy, getting into ISKCON. Mayavad philosophy is all one, So therefore, the spiritual master is directly God. You just don't realize it. So okay, so that was an example of someone thinking that they knew Srila Prabhupada's inner feeling, but they did not. Okay. So going on, one should never instruct one's own guru, even if one wants to present something to one's guru, thinking that this information may be helpful. One should always present it in a very humble spirit. 7, one should never argue with one's spiritual master. 8, one should never present one's qualifications to the guru. It should always remain in a very humble position. So, someone may join the movement and they may materially have some qualifications, big university degrees or a lot of money or some kind of qualifications. But you shouldn't go to the spiritual master and say, Gurudev, I'm so qualified in this way and I'm so qualified in that way. No, you always take the humble position. In fact, we should always think, and maybe it's this, one should never, it'll come up again. We should always see ourselves as the humble servant of the spiritual master. There's no question. Even if possibly it's possible that someone is physically older than the spiritual master, we come depending on when we come and what part of our life we come into the movement, we may be older. We may even have some more material qualifications. But the spiritual master is the spiritual master. So we should always have that humble position. 9, one should never sit on the same level as the spiritual master unless one receives his permission. Just like Lord Krishna is not different from his name or picture, similarly, there is no difference between the spiritual master and his name and picture. Hence, one should keep pictures of the Guru and Krishna carefully in a proper place. So there's a couple of different points here. As far as sitting on the same level with the spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada actually tells, in the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, he actually tells of an incident like that, where the disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta went in to see Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and everyone actually sat on the floor. Srila Prabhupada actually sat on the couch or whatever it was on the same level. He didn't even think about it. He was just there eager to hear the spiritual master speak. And then he looked around and saw everyone sitting on the floor. So he didn't say anything and he didn't move at the moment, but he never sat on that level again. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta didn't say anything either. But as an etiquette, you normally don't sit on the same level as a spiritual master. And as far as the pictures go, yes, Srila Prabhupada made it very clear. The picture of the Guru is worshipable. This picture of the Guru is worshipable. So, and although it's not stated here in this manual, but Srila Prabhupada also instructed that the pictures that we have of the Guru, like the ones we may use on the altar when we do arati, it should be the picture of the whole body of the Guru, not just the face. And then, of course, there's a saying here: we should not throw these pictures here and there. They're like deities, the pictures of the Guru. 10. One should not read books apart from those written by the Guru and the Parampara unless one has permission and blessings. So it's a practical matter. And there are many. There's 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas. So even in the Vaishnava Sampradayas, there are differences between the Sampradayas. There are some differences, and if one, of course, if one reads the spiritual masters' books, great. If one reads the books, if one is reading the spiritual masters' books and reads the books of the previous acharyas like Sri Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, they so many acharyas that came before Srila Prabhupada, they're part of our disciplic succession, then that's good. If you want to read other books, then there may be problem, especially if someone wants to read a study like Sankaracharya's commentary on Bhagavad Gita or the Vedanta Sutra, and usually it's of course with the blessings of the spiritual master you can do that. But if the danger in that kind of reading, is that if you're not very, very fixed in the Krishna conscious Vedic philosophy, if you're not very fixed in that, then and you're still trying to understand what the truth is, and then you read Mayavad philosophy, then you're finished. You become completely bewildered by it. On the other hand, if you are very fixed in it, in the Krishna conscious philosophy, in our disciplic succession, and you and the spiritual master allows, then such a disciple can study these other books like that, and to get to understand their arguments, so we can argue against it. But you have to be fixed. We don't. Just like there's 2 kinds of philosophical speculation. There's the philosophical speculation. Well, of course, the Mayavad philosophy is all philosophical speculation of the wrong kind, because the wrong conclusion is wrong. And then but the good kind of philosophical speculation is when you start off with the truth, like you study Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, you understand what the actual truth is, and then the speculation part of it, as you go on trying to further understand the philosophy, based how the philosophy leads to those conclusions of Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Nectar Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. That's a good kind of philosophical speculation. It means you think and try to analyze, but you already know what the truth is. But the kind where you try to figure out what the truth is and on your own, then you're going to come to a very wrong conclusion in all probability. Going on, dealings with seniors. Within a Vaishnava tradition, it is an important expression of our humility to respect those who are in a more senior position than ourselves. In the chain of seniority, the senior-most Vaishnava is the Guru, who is to be respected as representative of God, so he must be given the same respect as Krishna himself. That's We understand. Next are the sannyasis. Among the sannyasis themselves, seniority is considered on the basis of who had taken sannyas initiation earlier. All sannyasis should be offered respectful obeisances, particularly when one first sees them during the day. So in the group of so many sannyasis, their understanding, who they understand to be most senior is who took sannyas initiation first. Next are the gurus, godbrothers. They should be respected as one respects the spiritual master. Five, devotees who have undergone Brahmana Diksha should be respected. Again, seniority is determined on the basis of who has been initiated earlier. 6, devotees who have accepted Diksha before us should be given due respect. 7, special respect must be offered to the devotees who are senior in age. So physical seniority is considered here too. 8, one should not instruct another person in the presence of a senior Vaishnava without first receiving his permission. We have the same rule regarding instructing someone in front of the guru. So same principle here. And then when the ghee lamp is being offered to devotees after arati, seniority must be taken into account. So you go, as we do, we try to, ghee lamp is offered to the deities, and you take it around and try to offer to those who are more senior first. It may not always be, if there's a lot of devotees, it may not be possible to exactly get it right, but there should be at least an attempt to take to those who are more senior first. And on the other side of that, no one who is attending the artik should become upset that, oh, I'm more senior than this person, so why are they? I joined the movement 10 days before this one. Why don't they understand these things? Like that, you know. So devotees should be humble in that sense, but the etiquette is there to try to offer the ghee lamp and the flowers and so on to those who are more senior first. 6, devotees who have accepted Diksha before us should be given due respect. 7, special respect. Oh, I already did that. Sorry. Dealings with godbrothers. Number 1, godbrothers should call one another Prabhu. One should, however, not try to become Prabhu because we are being so addressed. One should simply remain a servant and accept others as Prabhu. I remember actually when just a few weeks after I got my first initiation, Srila Prabhupada sent out a letter to all the temples. I was still in Gainesville in those days. And he mentioned a number of things. He mentioned about the uninitiated devotees should be addressed as Bhakta so-and-so or Bhaktin so-and-so for women. He mentioned addressing women as mother. He didn't say Mataji, but it's the same idea. He said mother so-and-so. And devotees who were addressing each other as Prabhu. So he made the same point here. Prabhu means master. So it's a nice practice, and it helps us to keep in mind that we are our servant. We're always servant. Even the spiritual master considers himself servant of everyone, including the disciples, because he's accepting service from disciples, but but he's accepting that on behalf of Krishna, or behalf of the parampara, the disciplic succession. He's accepting that so that he can help those disciples to become Krishna conscious. So actually, his service is to help them to become Krishna conscious, and he's accepting service as a service to help the disciples become Krishna conscious, right? So in that way, everyone, even the spiritual master, is thinking himself servant. So we should not think that somebody calls me Prabhu means I'm a big master. I'm the master now. I'm in a high position. No, we're still servants. 2, we are the servants of our God brothers, and according to a particular level of God brother, we must serve him accordingly. From our senior God brothers, we should inquire submissively, carry out the instructions, and aspire to be their obedient servant. So here we're going into something which is actually discussed in the Nectar of Instruction. Which is the first slide we read here too. There are 3 classes. There are different categories of devotees, and so if someone is superior to us or senior to us, then we should render service and inquire submissively, try to understand Krishna conscious philosophy. If someone is on the same level, more or less, with us, and then we become like a friendship, and we just try to encourage each other to become Krishna conscious. And if someone is in a lesser position, means less advanced in Krishna consciousness, then we try to give them Krishna consciousness, like that, which I think we'll probably cover in the next upcoming slides. When we meet another God brother, we should bow down and offer the prayer, Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhuvyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. We don't do that as much now as we used to. It used to be very common. Everyone was on the floor all the time. Translation of that is, I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like desire trees, and they are full of compassion for the fallen souls. Number 4, we should never accept a God brother, a servant, unless we have permission or order of the spiritual master. Well, we should always see ourselves as servant, is the principle. 5, we must never allow the saying, familiarity breeds contempt, to enter into the relations between the devotees. Dealings between devotees should be respectful and without offense and duplicitousness. So, familiarity breeds contempt. So sometimes if we become too familiar, then we become too familiar, then we start looking for faults, and start looking down on someone because we're becoming too familiar. So we need to try to avoid that happening, of becoming overly familiar with anyone. Devotees must not address one another by their karma names. Sometimes I see that a devotee refers to someone else by their karmi name, their uninitiated names, but it's usually as a, kind of a way to put them down. I see that occasionally. But we should not address anyone or even refer to someone by their uninitiated names, unless there's, obviously some reason that you have to mention their name because of, somebody comes to the temple looking for somebody by their uninitiated name, because that's the name they know. They don't know the devotee name. So they ask like that, then you may say, oh, somebody's asking for so and so. But as far as devotees, between devotees, we don't shouldn't be addressing each other by the uninitiated names, the karmi names, as it's called. 7, one should not praise oneself or boast one's achievements of qualifications to other devotees. One should know that actually one has no qualification. Whatever we are able to do is only due to the mercy of Guru and Vaishnavas. So it's important. Even if we have achieved some good, something good, maybe there's some devotees in ISKCON that I'm sure are now and in the past for sure, have distributed huge numbers of books, for example. Amazing numbers of Srila Prabhupada's books are going out. But if those devotees who are doing that or doing some other something else extraordinary, and then become proud, and especially proud and praising themselves because just see what I did. I'm really great. Well, for one thing, it sounds bad. It's also bad for the consciousness of the devotee who is praising themselves. And what happens ultimately if someone does that or continues to do that and doesn't correct themselves, then Lord Krishna has a way of, popping the bubble. Right? You become very proud about something, and all of a sudden, your whole world falls apart, just to make you humble. Even in the line, the whole system of karma and everything in the material world, if someone becomes too proud, maybe they got a lot of money in one lifetime, they become very proud, then they may, the next lifetime, if they're fortunate enough to get a human birth anyway, then they may find themselves in a very poor situation where they have to, their mentality has to change. It's to help them to change their mentality. Sometimes if we've got a lot of material facility, and we may become very too proud. And if we have that, then sometimes Krishna has to do something to, pop the bubble, so to speak, so that we can get back on the path of Krishna consciousness. 8, if a god brother or god sister is undergoing some difficulties on account of sickness or bereavement in the family, and or in emotional turmoil due to some reason, one must help in word and in deed. As the saying goes, a friend in need is a friend indeed. The bonds between devotees will be tested at the time of difficulty. We cannot ignore such developments as being material. So we all get problems, family problems or some kind of problems. We all have problems. And if we see someone else who's having a problem, then if we try to have the right attitude and help, because if we and we shouldn't think that, okay, well, so and so is so much anxiety about something in their family, and I'm not going to do anything to help them. But the what's being stated here is that we may not, we should not think that that kind of help is just some material thing. The idea is that here's a devotee trying to become Krishna conscious and who's going through some difficulty, and if we can give some encouragement or some kind of help, depending on what the actual problem is, and help that person, help the devotee stay on the path of Krishna consciousness or improve their level of Krishna consciousness, then it's not a material situation. And in reality, Lord Krishna arranges things. Just like when we get at the time of initiation, Srila Prabhupada says that the spiritual master accepts the karma of the disciple, which means he's accepting it and he's passing it on to Krishna. So he's by accepting by him accepting the disciple, he's making a promise to Krishna and to the parampara that he will do everything he can to help that disciple to become Krishna conscious. And by the disciples surrendering to the spiritual master, chant your rounds, follow the 4 regular principles, and so on. By doing that, the karma that he had is wiped out. Krishna says, "Sarva dharmang parityaja mamekang sharanang praja ahang tvang sarva papebhyo mokshayami masujaha." So when Krishna says that if we surrender it to him, give up all everything material, then he will protect us from all sinful reactions. So that's actually what's happening at the time of initiation. We become free from the past sinful reactions, which is a big thing, because we have who knows, accumulated a lot of karma before we take up Krishna consciousness. How many lifetimes of karma have we built up that we would have to pay off for over many upcoming lifetimes? And all that gets wiped away at the time of initiation. All that gets wiped away at the time of initiation. There's no more actual karma. But Lord Krishna, so you say, okay, if I have no karma, why am I still suffering? I should be floating around in transcendental bliss all the time. And the reason that we are not floating around in transcendental bliss all the time is because although there's no karma per se, we still have the bad mentality. We don't the bad mentality that caused us to get entangled in that all that karma is still there, or at least it's not completely gone. It's probably largely there. So by Lord Krishna will instruct us, will guide us in so many different situations, some pleasing, some troublesome, some in our personal life, some where we have to decide how I'm going to help so-and-so who's someone else who's having some problem in their life. Lord Krishna makes all these arrangements to help us to become free from the bad mentality that causes us to get entangled in the whole karmic situation in the first place. So what we're reading about here, someone else is suffering. If we're suffering, we're getting some purification if we especially if we stay on the path of Krishna consciousness through it. And if someone else is suffering, and we can help them to stay on the path of Krishna consciousness, then that's the goal. So that's the idea. We're working together in Krishna consciousness to try to become fully Krishna conscious. No one person can do this alone. We have to. That's why Srila Prabhupada always emphasized staying in the association of devotees. The next slide, dealings with God brothers. Under dealings with God brothers, if a devotee has strayed away from devotional service and has not been in the association of devotees for a considerable period of time, he or she must not be chastised for being in Maya or reprimanded in any way that will push him or her further away from the lotus feet of the spiritual master. One must offer love, encouragement, friendship, and make him or her feel once again at home in the company of devotees. So, of course, this is it's very clear. So, if and a lot of, many devotees have joined the movement, and many who have joined have either left or are struggling and are not so, definitely not as active as they were in the beginning. But if someone comes along and they've been out for a long time, we don't, you just don't say, "Hey, you really messed up. You're finished." No, we try to encourage them to get back involved again. Come to the temple. Come see the deities, beautiful deities. Come get some prasadam. Bring them some prasadam, maybe, and just be nice and encouraging, so that they can feel. Because sometimes someone leaves the movement because maybe they had some fall down, some illicit sex or some kind of problem, and feels really bad that I've gave all this up, embarrassed like that. But if someone comes around, or if we know that they've been through this, to try to encourage them to get back on the path, as we would want someone to do for us if we got off the path. That's the point here. Dealings with ladies. A woman should be given all respect, particularly if she is a Vaishnavi, and addressed as such. So, as clear as it is. 2, a brahmachari should see every woman as his mother, and a grihasta should see every woman except his wife as his mother. You can't see your wife as mother. But otherwise, all women are mothers. And mother means, seeing woman as mother means respect and protect. There's no question of exploitation or anything else. It's respect and protect. 3, brahmacharis should associate with matajis only so far as required to execute devotional service and no more. Dealings with guests. When guests come to our temple and homes, it is the Vaishnava etiquette to treat them with great respect and love. They should be welcomed with sweet words, a seat, water, and prasadam according to our means. And there's a section in this manual that gives more information about that. And it's said that if Krishna, if someone, so Srila Prabhupada said, if a visitor comes to the temple, then it's understood that for somehow or other, Lord Krishna has sent that person here, and so therefore we need to deal nicely with who comes to the temple and try to give them whatever Krishna consciousness that they can accept. Addressing Vaishnavas. So Srila Prabhupada has to be addressed as His Divine Grace. Of course, we address Srila Prabhupada as Srila Prabhupada, but also the title is His Divine Grace. The Guru and a sannyasi as His Holiness. That means the Guru who is a sannyasi, and a godbrother as His Grace. So if we haven't taken sannyas, then godbrothers are addressed as His Grace so and so. Also, one can say a godbrother's name may be prefixed with Sriman. Srila Prabhupada actually, even though we were disciples, but sometimes Srila Prabhupada would refer to different disciples as Sriman so and so. I'm sure just so teach by example. A brahmachari's name is suffixed by the term brahmachari. So and so das brahmachari. Krishna das brahmachari, for example. A grihasta by the term adhikari, and a sannyasi by the term Maharaj, Swami, or Goswami. Srila Prabhupada would normally address the sannyasis who had been married before as Goswami when they took sannyas. And if they were unmarried, if they were never married, then as Swami. So, and all could be addressed as Maharaj. Dealings with other Vaishnavas, we may offer respects to, but one should not associate with the following categories. Vaishnavas of bad or questionable character, Sahajiyas, Vaishnavas of questionable sampradayas. Means that someone says, I'm from such and such sampradaya, we've never heard of such a sampradaya, because there's a lot of made-up ones that don't mean anything. And then Mayavadi sannyasis. So we respect, but we avoid association, according to this. And of course, I think there must be some cases that might be a little different. Someone's actually capable of associating with someone and giving their association and helping them. That could be a different story. But generally, depending on if someone is in certain positions, it's best for devotees in general to avoid them. Okay, next category here. Vaishnavas are not to be seen from a material viewpoint. So, Srila Rupa Goswami, there's a question coming on the screen. What are sahajas? Sahaja means someone who takes Krishna consciousness very cheaply, who may just like we understand that in a purified, perfect level of Krishna consciousness, that we can see Krishna, we can associate with Krishna and Radharani, and we can realize our eternal position. But if someone is just going around and pretending and putting on a show of like that, then that would be an example of a sahajiya. That's what a sahajiya is. And Srila Prabhupada mentions in Nectar of Devotion that sometimes, he says that one shouldn't do that, but then he also says, but possibly by those who do it, maybe it will give them a little hope of one day coming to that higher level, the actual Krishna conscious level. Sure.
Is sahaja traditionally translated as impersonalist?
No, it means to take one who takes Krishna consciousness cheaply, and impersonalist is something different.
The Mayavadi.
Yeah. Yes, the sahaja refers to what I explained. So going on, 2, in other words, one should overlook. I think I skipped it. Srila Rupa, I started to read this and a question came up. Srila Rupa Goswami says in the Nectar of Instruction, in regard to the Vaishnava, such a devotee should not be seen from a materialistic point of view. Indeed, one should overlook a devotee's having a body born in a low family, a body with a bad complexion, a deformed body, or a diseased or infirmed body. So we may tend, materially speaking, people tend to see people, well, of course, as the body, like that. But in Krishna consciousness, whatever kind of body we happen to have because of our past activities, where one should not identify the devotee based on that body. In other words, one should overlook all bodily defects of bad appearance, low birth, low education, etc. Any Vaishnava serving the Lord should be considered holy. So we're on the path of Krishna consciousness. This is a very exalted position. And the body that we have doesn't make any difference. So we can have a white-skinned body, a black-skinned body, a diseased body. Any physically we can be anything, but if we're engaged in Krishna service, this is a very exalted position. We get the opportunity to, and this does not only refer to those who are topmost pure devotees like Srila Prabhupada. It means one who's actually on the path of Krishna consciousness should not be seen on the basis of the body. We should be seen on the basis of our Krishna consciousness, and that we've made that choice because we all have free will. So if one actually uses his free will and decides, I want to dedicate my life in Krishna's service. For Lord Krishna, that's like a really big thing. In fact, he is such a big thing that the verse that I just said a little while ago, he's willing and ready to take away all of our karma, our sinful reactions, just because we decide that I want to live on as a Vaishnava, devotee of the Lord. I'm going to chant my rounds. I'm going to chant Hare Krishna. I'm going to follow the four regular principles for the rest of my life. That's a very big thing in Krishna's book. Okay? It is stated in the Shastras that it is a hellish mentality to consider a Vaishnava to be born of a certain caste or creed, or consider the same to be an ordinary person. So same principle there. Got a few more slides, and then I'll open up for questions. The body of a Vaishnava is to be seen as a temple of Vishnu. Therefore, while offering obeisances to a Vaishnava, we should remember that we are offering obeisances to Lord Vishnu within the heart. Therefore, we should never walk over the body of a Vaishnava. So, on the first point here, sometimes we may think, oh, I'm not going to bow down to that person, that devotee. But actually, the proper mentality is that devotee is engaged in Krishna service, and by engaging in Krishna service, because they're engaged in Krishna service, it's understood that Krishna is there in the heart. Well, he's in the heart anyway. In fact, when we put on tilak, we're marking the body as a temple of God, and that's actually what it means. We're chanting, different prayers, different names of God as we're putting on the different marks, and we're marking our body as a temple of God. So that means God is there. So we're not just offering our respectful obeisances to the person who we may or may not like. We're offering our obeisances to Krishna or Vishnu in the heart, the super soul. And then the second point, therefore, we should never walk over the body of a Vaishnava. So that's considered an offense to walk over someone's body. Although there was there is a pastime in Chaitanya Charitamrita where, who was it? Yeah, but who was with him?
His servant.
His servant. I don't remember which servant. One of Lord Chaitanya's servants, intimate servants, was with him, and he would always, after Lord Chaitanya would, he would dance, and he would lay down, and the servant would massage his legs like that. And then, but Lord Chaitanya laid down in the doorway. He just he just laid down in the doorway. So to massage Lord Chaitanya's body, he could do it partly on one side, but to finish, he had to be on the other side. And the only way to get out was to walk over Lord Chaitanya. So it was considered, normally it's considered an offense. Of course, Lord Chaitanya is, now he's God, but he's also playing the part of a devotee. So this servant, he stepped over the body of Lord Chaitanya, stepped out of the room so he could serve Lord Chaitanya with a massage on the other side. And then it came time for prasadam, which was in the room. So Lord Chaitanya was just remained laying there, but everyone else was in the room and was taking prasadam. Lord Chaitanya was resting, so when he woke up, he says, why have you not gone in to take prasadam? He said because it says, I stepped over you. I took a chance. I committed an offense to step over you so I could serve you, but I will not step over you for my own sense gratification, which going back and taking prasadam. I will not step over you for that purpose. For your service, I'll take that offense, but for my own sense gratification, I will not do that. Anyway, that comes to mind with this point here. Mercy of Vaishnavas is necessary. One should not begin any significant venture in one's life without first receiving the blessings of a Vaishnava. Just like Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, one example, he wrote the Chaitanya Charitamrita. He was asked to, but he made sure he got the blessings of the senior Vaishnavas to do that. He was feeling, I have no way. There's no way I can do this write this entire such a big book like this on my own. I need the blessings of the Vaishnavas. So he asked, and he got them, and he was able to do that. And there's other devotees that we read about that did the same thing. So same thing for us. We're to learn from this. We want to do something extraordinary. Srila Prabhupada himself, he was actually praying to Srila Rupa Goswami a lot before he came to America to guide him and empower him to carry out the orders that Sri Bhaktisiddhanta had instructed him to do. Like that. So one must always feel dependent on the mercy of the Vaishnavas. Even when we become Krishna conscious, we can, of course, it's always by the mercy of the Guru and the Vaishnavas, but we can become more and more and more Krishna conscious. But to get from the point of the last two steps of advancement on the devotional path are bhava and Krishna prema, which are both on the completely spontaneous level. But we cannot force ourselves into that position. We really have to desire and beg for the mercy of the Guru and the Vaishnavas and Krishna to be that. By that blessing, then we can move on to that highest level. It's not just a matter of, okay, I'm going to chant my rounds every day. I'm going to follow the regular principles every day. Good. And we can advance a lot by doing that. But the final steps, as the only thing that's holding us back, once we get to that point, is just having an intense desire But even that intense desire is only possible through the blessings of the Vaishnavas and Krishna. So that's the point here. All the way through our spiritual life, we need that, and that's one at the end, even towards the end of our spiritual progression, we still need it up until we're fully Krishna conscious. Loving exchanges between Vaishnavas. Srila Rupa Goswami explains in the Nectar of Instruction that there are 6 loving exchanges between Vaishnavas: offering gifts in charity, receiving gifts in charity, revealing one's mind in confidence, inquiring confidentially, accepting prasadam, and offering prasadam. And when one comes to the temple, one should accept prasadam from Vaishnavas. That's an easy one. For Grihastas, it is their duty to invite Vaishnavas to their home to offer prasadam. Number 4, the most precious gift we can give or receive is the gift of Krishna Katha, the transcendental knowledge of Krishna consciousness. Because even the chant Hare Krishna, we can say the most precious gift is the ability or the chance to chant Hare Krishna. But to learn about chanting Hare Krishna and the importance of it, that requires also the knowledge of Krishna consciousness. So the gift of Krishna consciousness, knowledge of Krishna, is the most important. Grihastas staying outside the temple should try to call devotees a renounced order for preaching at their homes. Actually, that's my last slide, but I realized just before we started that there was a little bit more I didn't touch here. And it's included in the quizzes that if you're taking the quiz, that it's there. So we should go over it. The last section here, dealings with non-devotees. We should not allow non-devotees to touch our feet, but if they insist on doing it, there is no way to avoid it. One can simply remember the predecessor acharyas as spiritual master and accept them and return the namaskar with folded hands. Like that. Two categories of non-devotees. To the innocent, we should be the well-wisher. With respect, we should try to enlighten them and give them the association of our spiritual master. But we should not take their association by engaging in activities that give them pleasure in life, in materialistic activities. Like you don't go out and you have an old friend who's a non-devotee. He says, "Hey, come out to the so-and-so place and have a drink with me," or something. We don't do these things. So that means that's an example of not accepting the association of non-devotees. We should not be influenced by bad or materialistic habits by non-devotees. As regards the atheists, we should avoid them. And it is an offense against the holy name to preach to such people. We may, however, preach if they are willing to submissively hear from us. So, there's a lot of people, we don't necessarily know who's an atheist until you talk to them, too. So that's another point, that we do take some chance to give Krishna consciousness to everyone, and sometimes someone will be an atheist or an agnostic, and they just don't, maybe we can't give it to them, but we may take that chance. But generally, if someone is like a dedicated, they're an atheist, and they're determined to be an atheist, they're going to fight to be an atheist, like that, then they're not going to listen to anything you say, as a rule, and it's better just to avoid them. And then last section here, greeting non-devotees. If the non-devotee is a friend, we can say Hare Krishna and with folded hands touch our forehead. And if the non-devotee is a superior relative, then we should chant Hare Krishna and bow down to him or her. Actually, in the beginning, I've never bowed down to a non-devotee relative, but in the very beginning, Srila Prabhupada, when Gargamuni Swami, well, he was still Swami then, or maybe he wasn't even Swami yet, Gargamuni and Brahmananda brothers, their mother came to visit, and Srila Prabhupada told them to bow down to her. She didn't like it, but he told them to bow down to them, to the mother. So that's the principle being mentioned here. Non-devotee, but showing respect if they're superior to you. And if one encounters a person who is criticizing Guru, Vaishnavas, or Shastra, then one must either soundly defeat him in argument or leave the place immediately. Hearing such offenses is one of the greatest obstacles to one's spiritual development. So, yes, if we're very fixed up in spiritual life and in philosophy, and we understand, and we can really raise good arguments and defeat whatever blasphemous thing that they're saying, then we can try defeating them. I mean, they may actually get some help from that. But if we cannot do that, we don't want to just sit there and listen to them go on and on and on, because by hearing that, then it will be very bad for our own spiritual lives. So this ends the material I have. I know there's some questions.
Okay, the previous paragraph.
Let's try to speak loud so maybe they can hear it.
In the previous paragraph, if the non-devotee is a superior relative, then we should chant Hare Krishna and bow down to him or her. Is a slight inclination with folded hands sufficient for bowing down? This manual that we're using, it was actually printed in India by devotees in India. So maybe there it would be very common to bow down to parents and everyone. It's a common thing, right? Well, parents, yes, but it was
superior. It was a superior.
Oh, superior relative. No.
Superior relatives, so like parents, for example.
Uncles.
But I think here in America and other places where it's not part of the cultural tradition to bow down anyway to your relatives, then I think like this it's sufficient. It's the same principle.
Also, countless times, like after I performed the Gora Artik and everything, some visitors, usually always from India, they're moved to want to touch my feet, and I don't feel like I'm anybody whose feet you'd want to touch. So I usually jump back and try to comically say, "Oh no, I'm very fallen" and all that. But from what they're saying here,
yeah, you still try to avoid it.
Oh, go ahead.
Still try to avoid it, but if you absolutely cannot avoid it, then you remember the disciplic succession. You remember your spiritual master, and you're like this, or you like that.
Okay.
You can't avoid it, but as a rule, because someone touches your feet, that you get some of they give you some of their karma, which is why they want to touch your feet, really.
They know that?
Yeah.
No, I don't think they
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's.
Sometimes they're determined.
Yeah. So if you can't avoid it, then just deal with it the best you can.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Um,
And I think the servant's name was either Govinda or Gopal.
or maybe Govinda. He was
Yeah,
one of the
Govinda.
intimate. The Lord Chaitanya's servant was one of the. Govinda was one of Lord Chaitanya's very intimate servants, or Damodar. He has a servant like that. Raghunandan Fan, you got some questions? I see you've been writing notes here.
Yeah, I'm trying to write some news. Okay, let me see passing. What was written about? On the topic of the guru, you know,
Mm-hmm.
what is okay, one should not take the orders of one of the gurus as one lifetime. One should take the orders of one as one lifetime. So, in
Yes.
the presence of the guru, one should not instruct others without receiving his permission. Yes, so in the presence of guru, one should not instruct others without receiving his permission.
Yeah. Do you need some time to organize your thoughts there? Maybe I can give a chance to someone else. Because we're also on live here. So, okay. Anyone else have a question? No. No. Okay. I see another one on screen. In greeting non-devotees, do we touch our foreheads with folded hands? Yes, that's what the manual says. So I would say yes. The manual is basically put together by based on Srila Prabhupada's instructions or his books. So that's the point that was made here.
The question I wanted to put out after is that about the books. So we should be reading other books than
Yeah, the books. We should. In general, there's a lot of books. What happens is even if we read a book, that's even written by Vaisnava, but it may not be exactly in the same line that we are in, there could be confusion. Just like um, for example, Srila Prabhupada in the early days of the early days. He was still in New York Temple. That's all we had at the time. And he, and Srila Prabhupada had a heart attack, and he was going to have to go back to India for some time. No one even knew if he was going to come back at that point. And so one of the devotees asked, maybe suggested that maybe if by chance Srila Prabhupada didn't come back, because they were just trying to get their foothold in Krishna consciousness, they said maybe possibly one of your godbrothers could come and take over where you left off. And Srila Prabhupada was actually considered that an offense even to think like that. But he says no, because if they speak even one word different than what I speak, there will be great confusion. So same principle here. If some book outside of, especially outside of our parampara, there's something different stated than what we are learning, because there are some in Krishna consciousness there are general principles. Everyone chants Hare Krishna and so on, and there's details, and the details can be adjusted by actual acharyas. So there's an acharya who may be outside of your own the disciplic succession that you're in. If such an acharya, they may say something that's very good for them, very good for their followers, but may be a little different than what we learned from Srila Prabhupada in some way. And that could become very confusing. So therefore, as a general rule, we don't read books, even by the devotees, that are outside of our disciplic line. There are a lot of books in our disciplic line. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote so many wonderful books, and there's other acharyas that wrote many wonderful books, and it all corresponds with what Srila Prabhupada taught us, because he's basing his on theirs. So like that. But outside of that, then there may be possible, but it should be with the permission of the spiritual master. The spiritual master has to decide, such and such disciple, okay, you're learned enough in these scriptures so you can look at something else and not get confused. That's the idea.
The first is always not to deviate from the disciplic succession.
We should not deviate from the disciplic succession. Yes, that's the principle. I see another question here. In case someone is not initiated, who would be the guru for those? Okay, in ISKCON, if you're not initiated, then Srila Prabhupada's always we call them the preeminent Shiksha Guru. So you don't have Diksha initiation in ISKCON if you don't have a Diksha. But even if you do, Srila Prabhupada is called the preeminent Shiksha Guru, or the instructing Guru for all of ISKCON. And everyone else who is Guru in ISKCON now, and will be in the future, are teaching the same, the principles that Srila Prabhupada taught, like that. So as at least as Shiksha Guru, we have Srila Prabhupada, and until we take Diksha, and then that Diksha Guru better be teaching the same things that Srila Prabhupada taught, and that's otherwise the message gets lost, like that. Thank you. Any other questions?
I have one on sin,
Yes.
on the spiritual master.
Yes.
Dealing with the spiritual master. In the presence of Guru, one should not instruct others without receiving his permission. And in that way, if there is stories about it, if your Guru is not close to you, or if your Guru
Oh,
has
I
passed
mean,
away.
in this sense, presence of Guru. If the Guru is present, means like your Guru's here, you're here, and there's someone else there with you, and so Gurus are you're not going to instruct the other person in Krishna consciousness topics like that. If the Guru is there, Guru will, and of course the Guru may say, "Hey, you're the temple president, and go ahead and tell them what they're supposed to do." Or you could say like that, but generally in the presence of the superior, in this case the Guru, and before we also read superior God brothers like that, you don't the preaching and the spiritual instructions especially are given by who is in the superior position. So in the case of Guru, the Guru is obviously in a superior position. But that this refers to the Guru is physically present there with the person. It means you, the spiritual, you, the Guru, and at least one other person, and then so the Guru should be giving that instruction. Just like what Srila Prabhupada would say, like he his we call room conversations. People come to visit him, and they would go to his room, and they would speak, and disciples were there too. But unless Srila Prabhupada wanted a disciple to speak up and explain something, which sometimes he did, sometimes he would say, "No, you explain that," or Prajuna, what is that Sanskrit verse like that? So then they would speak, but it wasn't like Srila Prabhupada was trying to explain something to preach to someone, and the disciple would keep butting in and try to explain better than Srila Prabhupada was explaining. That's the idea here. So if the guru is present, then the guru should be the one who's speaking, unless he wants someone else, disciple, to speak. And Srila Prabhupada did sometimes ask a disciple to speak under certain circumstances. Srila Prabhupada even sometimes asked someone to give a class to some audience, and Srila Prabhupada was there, but he asked such and such disciple to sit there and give the class in front of him. So if he wants that, then yes. And if he doesn't want that, then we shouldn't speak independently of the spiritual master when he's present. Any other questions? Okay. If no other questions. Another question? Or you have a question? Okay. Anyone who's watching online have any questions? Okay, I think what I'll do is, because we're online here, and those who are watching can't see what's going on here. So what I'll do is I'll officially end the class here, and then Raghunandan, Pranam, you can still ask me the question. You can still talk. Okay. Okay, so we'll end the class here. Thank you, everyone, very much for everyone who came. And anyone who's taking the quiz for who's taking this for week 5, I haven't quite finished it, but I think tomorrow or next day it'll be in the course material. And so will the recording of what we're doing now also be there. Okay, so we'll end here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.